Greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about the broken supply chain. Now, over the last few months, much has been made over rising inflation and the broken supply chain, leading to everything becoming really expensive. And most of the stories and analysis done on this subject appear on websites and news broadcasts of companies who are owned by large multi-billion-dollar telecom conglomerates whose owners and shareholders are also owners and shareholders of other large companies. And so, of course, it behooves them to explain away the problem in the easiest possible way. So they contact their friends who are industry insiders and bring them on the news to explain that stuff broken because people lazy because Biden give free money. And we're just all supposed to go, oh, okay, cool. That's why inflation's up like 6% and there's nothing that I can buy in the stores. Cool. That's just supposed to explain it all away. There's never any, in-depth conversation about how near monopolistic conditions in most large industries are allowing these industry leaders to set the standards, which includes a very quick, very accelerated race to the bottom as they try to extract as much wealth as possible from the general populace, either via lowering consumer expectations or lowering consumer wages. And when faced with a choice of having to spend money on those things to give better service and have better products, or just point the finger and keep charging a premium for everything, those people are choosing the latter option. So, what I wanted to do today was focus on another piece of the broken supply chain that we haven't discussed before, so I can show you once again that most of these issues are caused by wealthy, greedy people wanting to become wealthier by being even greedier. The song remains the same, it's just the characters that are different. So, it's story time, kids! Here we go! Indentured servitude, low pay, and grueling conditions fueling the U.S. truck driver shortage. Long hours and poor working conditions have aggravated a driver retention problem, worsening the supply chain crisis. Now, before I go into this, I'm going to remind everybody again. The supply chain crisis, at every single twist and turn, could have been avoided if corporations and industries chose to diversify who they purchase their resources from and did more manufacturing and shipping within the country instead of having to wait for everything to come from overseas into one of 6 ports around the nation, thus causing a very bad logjam in very few places where most of this shit is coming in the first place. However, corporations wanted to maximize revenue and maximize shareholder dividend checks. So, rather than building a safe, secure supply chain, they built a tenuous one around how little they could spend for manufacturing, for labor, for shipping, and for all the legal that goes into all of that. All of these were conscious decisions made by corporations, boards of directors, and C-level executives. At Joe's Travel Plaza, a neon-lit rest stop on California's main interstate highway, truckers can get a brief respite from life on the road. There's a TV lounge, a laundry room, and a free shower if you buy at least 75 gallons of fuel. There's even a pair of massage chairs in the corner. Very quickly here, for those of you who have either never been truck drivers or never been really poor and thus have no idea what a truck stop shower is, it's pretty much what it sounds like. I will say that truck stops vary in quality and cleanliness, and truck stops that get a reputation for having good, clean showers that truckers usually have to pay about $12 a pop for. Those rest stops, they will have a line of trucks an hour down a freeway at 3 o'clock in the morning waiting to go into the exit ramp because the parking lots only hold 50 or 70 or 80 trucks, because truckers would much rather go there than go to a disgusting place where the showers literally look like prison showers. But drivers here are worried about the future. The supply chain crisis roiling the U.S. has inevitably drawn them in, with a shortage of drivers being blamed for containers idling at ports and packages being delayed for months. The trucking industry's main trade body has said America is short about 80,000 drivers, a figure that's made headlines around the country. And of course, when the headlines read, "America doesn't have enough truckers," the first thing that you always hear come out of the mouths of corporate media is, well, that's because people don't want to work. This old chestnut, we just keep kicking it around. And yet the same people who want to tout that Americans are lazy and don't want to work also gleefully report that federal U4 unemployment in the United States is only 4.1% and that America has made a miraculous recovery. It's like Schrodinger's economy. It's so horrible that we can't get people to get off their ass and become part of the labor force, yet so awesome that shareholder returns and the Dow Jones Industrial Average are at all-time highs. Truckers say the problem isn't a shortage of qualified drivers. There's plenty of people who've been through the training programs and hold a CDL. The rot, they say, is far more systemic. Low pay, long hours, and an industry that treats drivers like, quote, cannon fodder, churning out new recruits who inevitably quit because the job is so grueling. Wow, I feel like we've heard very similar descriptions of job and labor conditions in all of those careers that we've done so many videos about. Fast food, retail, leisure and hospitality, low pay, combined with poor working conditions, leading to people going out and finding different jobs in different careers because there's a glut of them now, thanks to the timeout that we placed on the economy last year. And so it would seem that trucking is no different from any other industry. If you don't give people a good environment to work in and you don't pay them a living wage, they leave. That's basic free market economics. I don't know why any of this is so surprising. I'm going to guess that the conditions and the pay are far worse than even I have been led to believe. Meanwhile, Bob Costello, back in the beginning when I told you about the wealthy industry insiders who have biased opinions and then get sourced for articles and opinions and statements. Yeah, that's Bob. Watch what Bob does, okay? The chief economist for the American Trucking Association said in a statement that there's a myriad of reasons behind the latest shortage of workers: an increased demand for freight, pandemic-related challenges, early retirements, and driving school and DMV closures, to name a few. Quote, "There's been tremendous pressure on the driver pool as a result," he said. Funny how Bob didn't mention the low wages and grueling hours that all the truckers cite as the number one reason for there not being more truckers. But our good friend Bob would have you to believe it's just those gosh darn market conditions that are causing drivers to tell companies to go fuck themselves. But labor economists and trucking experts, not named Bob, who aren't industry insiders who are well paid and working for shareholders and C-level executives, they describe an industry where deregulation and constant pressure to deliver goods at ever cheaper prices has resulted in working conditions so poor and pay rates so low that they amounted to, quote, indentured servitude. As a result, companies that trained and recruited new drivers often had turnover rates as high as 100% in a single year. For those of you who aren't economists or math majors, 100% would mean every single one. That would mean literally every single person they trained quit. Trucking used to be a high-paying blue-collar job, but since the industry was deregulated in the 1980s, thanks Ronald Reagan, pay rates have dropped dramatically. One of the biggest problems is that most drivers now get paid by the mile, often meaning that while they're waiting to load their trucks, stuck in traffic jams, or on mandatory rest breaks, they aren't making money. Now, back in the day, before deregulation, drivers used to get paid per day, per week, per year, or if they were short-term contract drivers, by the freight load. Now, however, thanks to deregulation, a few industry-leading companies who control the majority of the market share have gotten to dictate what working conditions are and what pay conditions are. And they have slowly but surely dragged the entire industry over to paying drivers by the mile, thus reducing the amount of money they get paid and increasing the profitability of the actual shipping companies. Because, of course, this is all a part of the race to the bottom, and everybody who has capital is trying to run quicker than the schlub next to them. But don't worry, all y'all working class people, we're like 8 steps behind and we ain't never gonna catch up. Quote, drivers earn a piece rate wage that may look attractive, but when they realize the big promises aren't real, they exit. If you can work construction and get paid $20 an hour and be home every night, why would you drive a truck and get paid $10 an hour to not be home for weeks on end? Ah, yes, this goes into working conditions and quality of life. And if you have a job or you as an industry are undesirable to a good quality of life, then you are going to have to pay more for labor. Once again, this is how the free market works. And of course, these people know that. This is why they're making the active choice to keep churn and burning through people by paying them next to nothing and then throwing their hands in the air and going, well, I guess y'all are just going to have to wait 3 weeks to get cornflakes in your store. It's not my problem. We just can't get people who are willing to work. Driver Raul Herrera sits in the corner of the trucker's lounge eating a cup of noodles, reading on his cell phone about an accident in which an inexperienced trucker lost control of his semi-trailer and killed 4 people. The driver was then found guilty of vehicular homicide. Herrera worries about a federal plan that will allow 18-year-olds to drive trucks as apprentices, while the current law requires truckers to be 21. The provision to put teenage truckers on the road was tucked into the recently signed federal infrastructure bill and seen as a major victory for the trucking industry recruitment efforts. But truckers who already work one of the most deadly jobs in the nation were horrified. Quote, you don't want to put new guys on the road, even if there's a trucker shortage. It's not safe. But if it's not safe, then why would industry lobby government take that lobbying money and then totally allow it by literally putting it in a bill? Oh, that's right, because apprentices, you can pay less. This is the same exact scam you're starting to see with the fast food people who are now pressuring the government to change child labor laws so that 14 and 15-year-olds can work 40 hours a week too, because they offer them a lower starting rate of pay, thus increasing profitability, increasing corporate shareholder dividends, and making everybody with capital happy. For veteran trucker Don Castor, a lot of the problems would be smoothed out if truckers could be paid for all their time on the road with fair and uniform pay rates. This, he said, might stop the race to the bottom that drives shipping prices ever cheaper, often at the expense of truckers. But he said if companies don't stop treating new drivers like they are disposable, things won't change. Quote, it doesn't matter to them if they can only keep a driver in a truck for a year, he said of companies' current outlook. They're making money. So what does this mean for you, the average viewer at home, the fellow member of the working class? Well, number one, it means that, yet again, it has been shown that all of the problems with our current supply chain issues are related to wealthy people wanting to stay as wealthy as possible and deciding that you can just go fuck yourself if you don't want to wait 5 weeks for Lipton cup of soup to get back on the shelf in your local grocery store. They literally don't give a fuck, nor should they, because they're in the business of making money, not in the business of making workers or consumers happy. Now, in an actual, quote, free market, well, there would be actual competition. And thus, the race to the bottom would actually be a race to the bottom of profitability. Because, as we have discussed numerous times before, in a healthy free market economy, your corporate profitability in any industry should be somewhere right around 3% to 1%, because there is enough competition out there that prices continuously get driven down. But instead, all of these industries, the large industry leaders in them, have gone out and spent a shit ton of money lobbying the US government to give them free reign and control over what happens in an entire industry. So now the trucking companies and the trucking industry, much like all other industries, is totally unregulated and being run by a handful of old rich white dudes. So everybody, expect to not only continuously be lied to by the media who want you to believe that all of this is because people are lazy, and more importantly, you'd better prepare for the fact that shit's not going to go back to normal, because there are just too many people who are unwilling to work a shitty job in shitty conditions anymore. So don't get angry at the workers or the lack of workers. Get angry at the people who offer shitty pay and subpar working conditions. They're the reasons that people are staying home. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.